Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to explore the Attributes feature on the Annotation platform. This feature helps you enrich annotations by specifying additional object or file characteristics, improving data accuracy and organization. In this video, we'll walk through how to configure and apply attributes effectively, ensuring more precise and structured data labeling. Let's get started. There are three types of attributes based on their usage: class attributes, file attributes, and common class attributes. Class attributes are assigned to specific object classes and apply only to annotations of that class. For example, if you have a pedestrian class, you can define attributes like age or carrying an object that will only be available when labeling pedestrians. This ensures that each class has relevant and structured metadata. File attributes are linked to the entire file rather than individual objects. These attributes are useful for storing metadata about the dataset, for instance, time of day or weather. File attributes help maintain additional context at the dataset level. Common class attributes apply to multiple object classes, enabling consistent labeling of shared characteristics. For example, the attribute human can be assigned to both pedestrian and accessory classes. This means that whenever you select an object from either of these classes, the human attribute will appear, allowing you to specify whether the object is a human. You can add as many attributes to each shape, file, or to apply for all classes as you need. To add an attribute, click on the Add New Attribute button. You can then choose from the following 5 options. Select allows you to define a list of predefined options for selection. Mugshot, used for adding images or visual representations related to the attribute. String, for text-based attributes where any alphanumeric input is required. Boolean, a binary attribute with 2 possible values, such as true, false, or yes, no. Separator, provides a visual divider to separate different sections of attributes for better organization. Let's dive into each one and explore how to configure and apply them to your annotations. Select Attribute allows you to define a list of predefined options for selection. For example, when annotating images of clothing, you could use a Select attribute to create a list of clothing types, hat, shirt, jacket, or pants, for annotators to choose from. When creating an attribute, you can add multiple response options for selection in the attribute window. Now, let's go over the fields you need to fill out. Fill the required title field marked with an asterisk. If you'd like to have a localized, human-readable attribute name, fill in the optional title fields as well. This ensures that your attributes are properly named and localized for users across different languages. Since the ID for export field is also required, make sure to fill it in with the desired name. This name will be used when exporting the attribute. The next field is Interpolation, which offers 3 options and is particularly useful for video files. This field is common for all attributes except the separator. This option applies the same value across all frames in the video, ensuring consistency throughout the entire sequence. If you change the attribute value in any frame, that change will automatically be applied to all frames. Here, the value remains constant until the next change. This means that once an attribute is assigned a value, it will hold that value until it is updated. With this option, the value is only applied to keyframes, meaning the attribute is not interpolated between keyframes, and only the keyframes will have a value. Following that, there are a few checkboxes to configure. Show in the editor. This option displays the name of the selected attribute for this class in the objects list. Show title in the editor. This checkbox displays the attribute name and the selected option above the annotated object in the editor. These 2 options are available only for class attributes and common class attributes. Read only. When checked, this option locks the attribute, preventing any further changes once it has been set. Private. This checkbox ensures that the attribute will not be exported in the JSON file during the export process. The next step is to add selection options. For each option, fill in the required title and a unique export ID, which will be used during export. If you'd like to have a localized option name, you can also fill in the following title fields. Additionally, you can choose a color from the color palette for each option. This color will be displayed in the editor to visually differentiate the options. After setting the options for selection in the Selection Options section, you can optionally use the Dependencies section to define triggers that control when these options will appear. Dependencies allow you to control when certain attributes appear based on selected values of other attributes. For example, if you have a clothing type attribute with options like jacket and shirt, you can create a new jacket type attribute with its own set of options. In the Dependencies section of this new attribute, you can link it to the clothing type attribute and specify jacket as the triggering option. As a result, the jacket type field will only appear when jacket is selected, helping to streamline the annotation process and display only relevant options. The appearance of the dependent value can be controlled by setting conditions to be met, either all or any of the specified requirements. This gives you flexibility in defining how attributes interact with each other, based on certain choices or conditions. After setting everything up, click the Save button to apply the configuration. The Mugshot attribute allows you to add an image to the answer choices for selection in the attribute window. To configure it, follow these steps. Start by filling in the required title and the ID for export fields. If needed, you can also provide localized versions by completing the optional title fields. Set the interpolation method, if needed, or leave the default option. To enable access to mugshots, the user needs to set the correct URL link. Its structure is similar to the file URL configuration used in external storage projects. The URL consists of 3 parts. This part is unique for every project and defines the platform instance used to access the storage. This segment connects the platform with the storage and points to the directory containing image annotations within a specific project. It reflects the storage provider in use: Amazon S3, Google Cloud Platform, or Microsoft Azure. This dynamic placeholder ensures the correct mapping between stored images and the attribute values. Here, you can also manage the attribute's visibility in the editor, lock it from further changes, or exclude it from export by selecting the corresponding checkboxes. After that, add thumbnail options under the Selection Options section by filling in the required title and ID for export fields. The ID for export must match the exact file name from the external storage and corresponds to the ID variable configured earlier. By setting up the Mugshot attribute correctly, you can enhance the annotation process with visual reference images. Just like with the selection attribute, you can optionally configure dependencies as triggers. This means that certain Mugshot options will only appear if specific or all conditions are met, allowing for a more dynamic and structured annotation process. Finally, to save changes, click the Save button. The string attribute does not offer any predefined choices. Instead, it provides an open input field where you can manually enter any value. This is especially useful when you need to add additional context that isn't covered by existing attributes. For instance, if an object is already annotated in a scene, you might use a string attribute to leave notes about scene features such as lighting conditions or color vibrance. This allows you to capture nuanced observations that help describe the scene more accurately. The form setup is similar to other attribute types, except there's no need to define options. Once you've configured everything, remember to save your changes. The Boolean attribute provides only a yes or no answer for the given criteria. For example, when annotating clothing items, you could use a Boolean attribute to indicate whether a garment or accessory has a visible logo or not. The attribute configuration is quite similar to that of the string attribute. Optionally, you can set colors for the yes and no options, which will be displayed during the annotation process, making it easier to differentiate responses at a glance. The next attribute is the separator. This attribute is used to organize and separate other attributes into conditional groups. For example, if you're annotating clothing images, you might use a separator to distinguish between general category, jackets, shirts, specifics, options related to selected jacket or shirt types, and thumbnails, reference images for visual representation. To configure it, simply fill in the required title fields and, if necessary, set the dependencies. As always, be sure to save your changes to apply the configuration. The order of attributes configured on the class's configuration page directly corresponds to the order in which they are displayed in the editor. In other words, what you see is what you get. Users can easily change the order by dragging and rearranging the specific attributes. Let's take a closer look at how attributes behave in the editor, particularly when dealing with multiple selected objects. Understanding this will help you navigate and edit more efficiently, especially when working with both images and videos. When multiple objects are selected in the editor, the Attributes panel will only display the attributes that are common to all selected objects. This ensures that you're working with relevant information for all objects at once. For keyframe navigation and editing, which applies to video files, the process is similar to how it works with object shapes. You can use the next previous jumps to navigate to the nearest frame where any of the selected objects has a keyframe. If none of the selected objects have a keyframe at the current frame, the keyframe indicator icon will appear empty. If some of the selected objects have a keyframe at the current frame, the icon will show a half-filled diamond, indicating an indeterminate state. Finally, if keyframes are set for all selected objects at the current frame, the diamond icon will be fully filled, indicating that all objects have a keyframe at that frame. For attribute values, if all selected objects share the same value for a specific attribute, that value will be displayed. However, if the selected objects have different values, the panel will display multiple values. Any change made to an attribute will apply the new value to all selected objects. That's all. For more information, visit our Gitbook and video tutorials. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next videos.